Well, hi, everyone. I'm Jamaica. I am the Director of Content and Community at Codesmith. And I, like Caitlin said, I'm super excited to have this conversation. I think it's such an important one, and it came from all of you. So we have heard from many prospective students. You know, I'm curious, like, how will I be able to manage my life while in the immersive program? And because of that, we decided to put this panel together. So I really appreciate your time, Eric, Eugene, and Kristin, for coming on and sharing your experiences. So I would love it, panelists, if you would please kick things off by sharing your just a quick introduction. So we'll start with Kristin, then go Eugene and Eric. But if you could please share name, where you're currently located, what you were doing before Codesmith, what you're currently doing, and how many kids you have and what age they are. And if you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'll repeat those parts.
So hi, everybody. My name is Kristin Tillotson. Until recently, I lived in Houston, Texas. Thanks to working from home, my husband and I just relocated just south of Jacksonville, Florida. Before Codesmith, I was a teacher. My last year, I taught high school. I taught business. And I was lucky enough to like mix in a little bit of JavaScript for my students. Like as I was learning it, I tried to teach them some too, because I had a really flexible schedule there. And now I'm an engineering mentor at Codesmith. So I'm an instructor, and then I also get to do some coding as well. And I've got two kiddos. I have a son that's about to be 6 years old and a 3-year-old daughter.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
My name is Eugene. I am born and raised a New Yorker, so still here, still in Queens. I spent 19 years as a manufacturing engineer, went to Codesmith, and now I'm started in July at Capital One. I have 2 kids. My son's 5 and my daughter is 3.
I'm Eric. I am located in Houston. What I was doing before, I was in the military, in the Air Force and the Army, and before that, or after that, I was a teacher. I taught elementary school, 2nd and 5th grade, and 4th at the very end. Yeah, I'm a software engineer at Mindbody, and I've been there next month for a year. I have 2 kids. They're twins, boy and a girl. They are 4 years old. They're going to be 5 in December.
Awesome. I have a 4-year-old. He's going to be 5 in January. So we're right there doing all that stuff. I don't know about your kid. Mine is like, he's wild. He's fabulous, but he's wild. 4 is really fun. All right. So cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introductions. I hope that was helpful for people. I did put this in the chat, and I know I'm kind of reiterating what Caitlin said. It would be great to see people's faces. So if you feel comfortable with it, please do turn on your cameras. It makes it more of a conversation and less of a, talking at you. We'd appreciate it. All right. So this is for all panelists. I'd love to get a sense for what your day-to-day looked like in regards to managing the hours during the immersive and balancing your parent responsibilities. How'd you set yourself up for success with that to get the support you needed? And how did you balance that parent-resident seesaw? Anyone, you all can just unmute and speak as you're ready.
Raise our hands.
I was going to say, or I can do it for you. Eric, why don't you go first?
Sure. It'd be the first one. You can probably hear my kids in the background. It's bath time.
Not yet, but I'm sure that I'm sure we will. We'll be
excited. Try to get as far away from them as possible. So that may start one thing. You need to have like a quiet space reserved for work. That's the first part of the balance that I would recommend. I went through Petrie, so that's the part-time remote immersive. That's 9 months. It's a long time. I was teaching the entire time. Balancing the responsibility. So Petrie works a little different. You start your hours right after work, and it goes until 10 p.m. my time, and that was late. And I found that I still had to stay up until like 11, sometimes 12. Nobody asked us to do that. It's just things that you need to be caught up on and to get that done. For me, it was easier for that time because of, my kids are really young. At the time they were 3 years old. So they would either be asleep. Actually, most of the times I was able to eat dinner with them and then maybe give them a bath, but have to bounce right on here. And it's tough because you really don't get that break from work right into your residency. I think honestly, as straightforward as possible, that's part of the thing you're signing up for. It's going to take a sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of motivation to keep doing that, especially in Petrie, to be honest. But I was really honest with my partner. We knew that we were doing this. Me and my wife were, like trying to change our lives. And so, and Petrie, you had to work some Saturdays. I think full time you do have to do Saturdays too. But yeah, like when I took over the responsibilities for my children, I was all in. I would just, make sure my partner got the rest and let them clock off, so to speak. I shared with them my progress, like check in and told them what I was doing and how it was going. And especially at the very end of it, it was very important during the job search to keep checking in with your partners for the emotional and the moral support. So yeah, I think I probably over answered that question.
No, you're good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Eugene or Kristin, anything to add, or your specific experience?
Sure. So I lived in the central time zone when I did the immersive, and I did the central time, like I did the C-Tree immersive. And in hindsight, I think I probably would have done the West Coast, because with little kids, like I think I would have preferred to have maybe a couple hours in the morning. So I did the full time. I didn't do part-time. And I think and I was talking to another mom about this that was considering Codesmith, and she had a little baby, like itty bitty. And, I can stay up all hours for, 13 weeks. But it would have been nice to be able to like have a breakfast and a little bit more a day with them. But I did have breakfast with them because we didn't start till 9, and 9 o'clock's pretty late as a parent. So I always had breakfast with them, and then you get an hour lunch most days, but then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes you get 2-hour lunches. So on those 2-hour lunches, I always made sure to take time for the kids because they weren't in school yet. And most dinners I tried to have with them if I wasn't like in the middle of some crazy big project. But even if I was, I tried to like just set that to the side and go to spend some time with them and be intentional with that time. Like I would like put my phone on top of the fridge if I had to, or leave it in the bedroom so I didn't see them, didn't see the phone, see all the Slack messages, because I tried to just be really intentional with my time with them. And like Eric said, I tried to give my husband like some breaks, because like we had a discussion of like, this is going to be a lot. You're taking on the bulk of it, and like, I'll help as I can. You do get Sundays off. And so like, I tried to be really intentional with my Sundays too. I tried to not like do a lot of coding, even though I was really tempted to, and just spend a lot of time with my family as I had time, because, you always have time to learn to code, but they're not always going to be 3 or 5 years old. So it's nice to try to like be intentional with that time when you can.
Thank you. And Eugene, you're already ready, so go for it.
I did the New York immersive, remote. Just to give you, I guess, a little quick rundown of how my day would be, since my kids were 4 and 2 at the time I did the immersive. I had to really just get some help. My mom luckily lives close by, so I asked her to help. Sort of just gave them a little rundown before the program started, just sort of setting up my support network. But a general day would be waking up at 7, getting the kids up, fed. By 8 o'clock, getting them ready out the door to drop off at daycare to start the program at 9. By lunchtime in the program at 12:30, start prepping food for the rest of the day, or if I have a 2-hour break, prep food for multiple days at 5:30 when it's the Codesmith dinner time. Pick up my kids from daycare, bring them back, heat up food, so that they would have food pretty much starting to eat around 6:15. Get back into the program in the evening time at 6:30. By 8 o'clock, I log off, put them to bed. My wife's home by then. Then she takes over about 8:39. And then I'm usually studying a little bit more or something. Of course, you don't need to do this. It was just something I wanted to do on my own. and probably I logged off around midnight and then rinse and repeat. It's a lot, but setting up the support network is paramount beforehand. Saturdays, when the kids are not in daycare, I had my sister-in-law offer to take the kids because luckily my niece is much older, so she can help take care. But support network is, yes, the most important part of being able to do the program in both me and my wife coming out with our sanities intact.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's a lot. I can only imagine. It's a lot. So as you think about it, what challenges or opportunities did you experience as a parent during the immersive and now in your careers afterward? Kristin, can you go first here?
Sure. So it was just difficult at times. Like the first couple of weeks, you're like so excited to be in the program and you're really super motivated. And then things start getting rough and you start feeling like you're missing your kids a lot. You're missing big moments. And so that's where you kind of like have to dig deep and say to yourself, like, I'm doing this for a reason. This is a short, compromise for a better life for our entire family. Now that I work from home, I have a lot more opportunities. For example, like when I was a kid, I, was basically a latchkey kid. Like I was there till my mom got off work. And then like I rode the bus in the mornings, but now I have the opportunity to like drop my kids off at school, pick them up. The biggest challenge, with the new job is just like coordinating my schedule with their schedule, but it hasn't been that bad. But the main challenge was during the immersive, just like having to dig deep and find motivation when the days were tough and I just wanted to spend time with my kids.
Totally makes sense. I get that hugely. Eugene, you unmuted. Go for it.
Most of the challenges was just the organizational aspect, just making sure food's there, childcare is there. That's just, because Codesmith has a pretty rigid schedule, so it's easy to sort of plan around. And especially since you sort of know your schedule decently in advance, you can get organized pretty quickly, or just get everything set up. With the career afterwards, I feel like with Codesmith being so rigid and so time intensive, anything you do after that feels a lot easier. So, and it's most of the time your job is pretty flexible, so they'll let you, pick up kids, or if you need to do something, they're it's a lot easier than other jobs that are a little bit more rigid.
That's actually a beautiful segue into my next question. So Eric, if you had an answer, you can come back around to it. But if you don't mind, I'm going to just jump right into the next question, because I would love to understand from you all if you feel that the companies that you're at offer the flexibility that you need, paid leave that you need, or salaries and other resources to support you as a parent and making sure you're able to have quality childcare. So I'd love to get your perspectives on that. Like, do you feel like your companies are giving you the flexibility you need and the leave that you need and salaries or other resources to support you and your family? And Eric, if you want to jump in here, you can.
Yeah, I'll mix the answer because I did have an answer for the previous one.
Cool.
One of the challenges I faced immediately was we didn't have an income or a support system like parents living nearby, or even like I didn't have like any siblings to take care of my kids or whatever. It was just me and my wife, right, with twins. So I couldn't quit my job, like at all. I had to do Petrie, which I think was, for me, it worked because over a long period of time, I had more opportunity to really understand what I was doing. And I took some extracurricular. I started a podcast. I really dived in LinkedIn. I made connections. Those things were opportunities naturally presented in Petrie. And I'm sure in full time you have windows of opportunity like that, but I think you'd have to look for them a little bit harder because it's so strict with time. It is a boot camp, and like I've been through 2 boot camps like in military, and your time is always accounted for and it's disciplined, right? And I feel like that's how it is when you go through Codesmith. Like when you come out, the opportunity is that you've been through so much stress and trial that when you come out, everything seems easier, like Eugene said. But and the opportunity is now, like, you can take your new skill set and go to any company you wish. Really, I mean it. Now to segue that, I think, a little bit naturally into what company you need as a parent. I'll just say this off the bat: remote is very valuable. Okay, it is because there's been times where my kids both got sick, and I just told my boss, I was like, "Hey, can I take a lunch and go take my daughter to the doctor?" And they said, "Yeah, no problem. That's not a big deal." For my old job, that was a huge deal. I'd have to take a day off, and it was just really, like, time consuming and taxing. It was a real burden, and of course, yeah, the money is helpful. It is, it's awesome. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's amazing. For me, I doubled my income, like, out the gate. And that's a big incentive, but I feel like it shouldn't be your only motivator. If it is, I think you might struggle because it's a little superficial of a motivation. I'm not going to get into that too deeply, but I think it does help. But what kept me on track was just like, I'm doing this for my family, and it changed our lives. My company is very supportive of family, and I'm taking some leave to go to Disney in December. In April. My kids just got in school, so we really aren't doing like childcare anymore. But when we were, it was expensive, more than my mortgage. And so, yeah, the money helps with that. And if I were interviewing for a company, that's where the culture fit comes in. You do need to look for a company, and you have to kind of have, like, feel the vibe and say, maybe offer them a counter question like, "Hey, I have this event coming up. Would you be open to me, like, doing some work remotely and going here? Or is it okay if I would go to, like, say, take my lunch and go take my daughter or son to a doctor's appointment?" Like, just turn the table and see how they respond. Get a feel for if that is the right company. Because I think in your interview process, you're going to think, I have to be the right fit for the company. But you need to remember that they have to be the right fit for you as well. So.
That is an awesome piece of advice. I love that. Thank you for sharing it. I would offer one more for people. I love, and I believe, and I agree fully about the remote being a huge thing. I've been doing a lot of hiring, and I'll tell you though, if that's your main reason to join a company, don't say it. Like, that's not enough. Tell me about the company. Tell me about why it's a great company fit for you. Don't tell me I want the flexibility of remote. Like, that's secondary, right? Even if that's your number one thing. But I just want to offer that little piece of advice, because I have done a lot of hiring and I'm like, dude, I can't move you forward. Like, that's not enough. So just FYI, keep that one in the back of your brain for the future. Okay. So if y'all were to do the immersive again, would you do anything differently to help you manage your responsibilities?
I kind of touched on this earlier, but for me, I think if you plan on doing the remote and not the in-person, I would really look at your options, because you have 3 options, like 3 time zone options, and pick out which one might work out best. Because I think I was under the assumption that I needed to do Central because I lived in Central time zone, and that especially, like, that one doesn't matter as much. Like, I know that people that live in New York think they need to do New York, or people that live in California need to do the West Coast, but you can do any of them. It doesn't really matter where you live, and that's not going to hurt your networking abilities or anything like that. I have friends that lived in New York and did the West Coast and that have jobs now. So look at those times and see which one would fit best for your family. Like, if your kid's an early riser, maybe do the opposite of the time zones. You get a larger chunk in the morning with them or something.
I love that. So I think that's, when we're trying to make it more clear, because I think you're absolutely right. That assumption is there. It's like, I need to be in this time zone. People are like, I'm in mountain time. Can I do the program? I'm like, of course, it's remote. Yes. Anyone pick. So we're trying to make it a little bit more clear. That's why we've actually, So Kristin was talking about C-Tree, which is Central Time Remote Immersive. We have adjusted the names a bit so that y'all could it's just the time zone, but it is the remote program across the board. So we'll be making some website changes in the future to try to help make that a little bit more clear, but just tell your friends, you can take any of them, just whatever one works best for you. So Eugene or Eric, anything that if you did it over again, you'd do differently to help manage your responsibilities?
I think the program has a certain set schedule. Usually your day ends at 8. I would have taken more time after 8 to spend time with the kids instead of and also not just that, but also to relax, because I think I was close to burnout at least 2 times in there, and it's usually, of course, you always rely on the people in your program to understand that you're a parent, and so that if you need to do your part of a project, you can scale it back. They'll take on some of the responsibilities. They'll help you out. You're going to get very close to the people in the program, so they'll help you out just as much as you're outside of Codesmith's like support network.
I don't really have an answer for this one.
That's cool. That's fine. No worries. I also, again, Eugene, you're just like teeing them up for me so I can knock them out of the park. But so with the support from your team is what you were just talking about. And I would love to understand from you all, what systems do you feel like the program offered you to assist in your completion of the program while maintaining that balance at home?
Yeah. So you're not the only person that is going through what you are trying to get into, like Codesmith, right? There's a whole like alumni network, but more importantly, you start with a cohort, like a lot of people. I'm not sure how many. Let's call it 20, right? I would use those people. The P-tree's long, so in the it goes in 3 segments. I don't remember what it's called. It's been a year, but in the middle portion, I started to really connect with some cohort mates. I have a podcast with 2 of them, and 2 of those same people are like now my best friends, right? We went through it together. Lean on other people in the program. You don't have to try to do this solo. Try to figure out what you have in common and really connect. Like I talked to my one of the person who's graduates on the podcast. He's actually works at my company. I referred him. And so networking is important, but also you really are going through something that's profound and difficult. You're going to face burnout. You're going to face challenges. You're not going to believe in yourself. Just keep each other motivated. Stay on track. Just to chat and talk. One of the things that helps me still in the company I work for is when I'm stuck, I'm notorious in my company for reaching out to people. It doesn't reflect bad on you. I think it reflects worse if you try to solve something and you just go over and over and over and hit a wall and you haven't reached out to anyone or used anyone as a resource. And you can do that back. Sometimes they might not give you the same outcome or advice you would need. You don't have to always take it. You just a sounding board, but different perspective really helps you. And honestly, just knowing that you're not alone. A lot of people face burnout. It's a real thing, even when you start your job. Just find somebody and cling on to them and say, we're going through this together. Military called it a battle buddy system. Just if you're in it, you're in the trenches together, and it really helps.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I can also speak to this. So I feel like Codesmith is really receptive to parents that have needs outside of the program. So for example, my son was graduating preschool, and it's not at the end of the day the biggest thing, but it was a big deal to me, and I wanted to be there. And it was on a Saturday, and so I contacted my program manager, and she just said, "Okay, that's totally fine. You're allowed, you're allowed to be absent. Just let me know the hours that you'll be gone." And it was no big deal. And luckily, so for the first couple of weeks, you are really heavy on lectures, and then you move into a project phase. And so we were kind of really deep into the project phase. And so I had like a group of 3 other people, total group of 4, including myself, that we were working together. And I just explained to my team, hey, this is what I need to do. They were all completely empathetic to my situation and said, we'll pick up the slack and we'll let you know like what you missed out on, or if you missed out on anything. And so it was nice being able to step away for a couple hours. And I didn't miss any lectures, but now I do have some parents in one of the immersives that I'm an instructor for here at Codesmith. And so we'll just send them the recording, like if their child's sick and they couldn't attend, we totally understand. And we send them the lecture as needed. And then also, like for when you are in the project phase, you have a little bit more say over your schedule, depending on the team that you work with. And my team was super empathetic. So I normally you end at 8, but we worked past 8 o'clock most nights. But I told them if we're going to work past 8, I would love from like 7:30 to 8 if I could go put my kids to bed every night. That just like at that point, I just needed that. And they were totally okay with that. So you do have some flexibility over your schedule at certain points. And I definitely encourage you to, talk to your team about your needs. And I've never found anyone not being empathetic with my situation.
I think that's great. How did you guys, you all set boundaries at work and at home to allow you to maintain that balance between both? Or did you?
Sometimes blend through a good bit. You try to stick to a schedule. What you as a parent know what you need. Don't know what your kids' schedules are. Just if you stick to it, because your kids need to stick to a schedule, so you have to try to stick to that, and then you just have to let people know. And that's usually what comes down to when you're in project phase. You just let them know, like, hey, you're working with these people for a few weeks, so you just let them know, like, I need to take this time off, and in the scale of the entire project, you instead of having 4 people for X amount of hours, you'll just have 3 people at X amount of hours, and you will have Y number of hours, and you just adjust the project to that. But there's always more to do it than than you actually plan to do. So there's more to do in your project than you will actually finish, such as the scale of the projects. And your eyes are always bigger than your stomach, and when it comes to that in the beginning. But just let them know you're there, that of what your work expectations are. And just keep that in keep that in mind. If there are issues, the Codesmith staff are very, very good in helping you in case there are conflicts. I was a fellow, so I did have to remediate some of those things. A fellow, sort of like a TA, I guess, since as that works for Codesmith. So there are staff in order to help you in case you do have issues that you can't immediately fix with your cohort mates.
Great, thank you. Do y'all have any tips on how to communicate with your kids to help them understand your schedule, your priorities, while also making sure they feel seen and heard? I know it's a little bit, y'all had young kids, but again, how did you talk to them about, like, hey, mom or dad is like, I'm gonna be real busy for a little while, guys, like, but I'm coming back, I promise. And grown-ups come back, right? The Daniel Tiger song that is in everybody's head.
My daughter was convinced for a little while that I was just watching movies, because she would, when I was in CS prep, she would come running in, and like, it was always like when I got called on. So I was like, thank you for saving me from answering the question. And but then she started to realize, like, these are real people, mommy's in a class, and we talked to them about how I was going to school. They understand going to school since my son just recently started. They knew he was like starting, they understood that concept. And then what I did was, like, at the beginning, you build like a snake game. And so like I sat down on my computer after class with them, and they played the game on my computer. And so they got to see some of the things that I did. And then there's certain presentations like from the senior residents that as a junior resident, you're just sitting there watching. So I would have them come sit with a snack and watch. Like they didn't really, they didn't know what was going on, but at least they were with me. They're not bothering anyone because during that time, you can be a little bit more fun. You can have like a fun background up and you're not distracting any, educational things that are happening. So that they also kind of like got to know what was going on. And now they know people from across the country. Like they knew the people in my OSP group, like they knew their names and they still talk to them sometimes when I like FaceTime with different friends from the cohort. They'll be like, oh, it's so-and-so. And they like wave hi. So it's really neat.
Those stories are so great. Thank you for sharing them. I love that. Yeah, Eric, go for it.
Yeah, I pride my kids. I had candy and cookies at my desk to give them a little extra time for myself. And then they were constantly in the Zooms with me. And I'm a camera on kind of person. So they just kind of became like guest stars. And when you're like pair programming, nobody really cares. Like everybody's going through it. Everybody's got something like a barking dog or whatever. So just be honest, like I'm in a class and they like that. I mean, there were 3 at the time, so they didn't really understand that. But I always just tell them, like, at least on Sundays, which was our activity days, I was just like, we're gonna do something fun. And I wouldn't be on the computer at all. And we would just go to the zoo or to do whatever. And so they knew like we're coming up on that day and just keep on telling them it's coming. And that understands that you're making them a priority. So when you're not actually coding or doing something, make sure you're present. I think that applies even if you're not like going through a cohort or a program, but just try to be present because it's important. And like if they're older and they're curious, I think what Kristin said, don't try to hide it. This is part of your life. They need to see it and see that you're working hard for them and to explain what you're doing. To the point, it's like, I'm trying to become an engineer and do this. And they'll, I think they'll really like that.
That's great. That leads me to my next question, unless Eugene, you want to jump in. Okay. So I think it's really cool that what you were just talking about like you're doing this to make your life better, their life, and as a result, their lives better. So how has your experience with Codesmith and becoming a software engineer impacted your family? And y'all can tell it however, whatever is like fair game for you. Like how has that impacted your family? We already know Eric doubled his salary, or it was you, right? Yeah, Eric doubled his salary.
I think just going through Codesmith and becoming a software engineer, luckily I found a role that was fully remote, so I never have to go into the office. That definitely helps. It was not necessarily my initial ask for the job. It just happened to be that Capital One matched me with a team that's based out of Texas, and obviously I'm not commuting to Texas every day. But there's definitely, you can definitely look for that. You don't necessarily have to ask, are you fully remote? You can always, my ask was when it was interviewing, it's like, what's your favorite part of the job, or what's your favorite work-life balance, or what work-life balance are you allowed? Instead of just asking directly, remote or, asking about stuff like that.
So this opportunity, like my husband had always kind of coded on the side for fun. And when I started the program, I would ask him, I was like, do you know anything about this? And he'd be like, oh yeah, let me show you it. And he kept showing me things. And my cohort mates are like, how does he know so much? And he's like, oh, I've just been doing this since I was 10. And he's like, yeah, I use some Python at work. And we were all kind of like, why aren't you applying for software engineering jobs? Because he already knew everything. And so he's like, well, I don't know why I haven't. And so he did. And he actually now is a lead software engineer at Capital One, which is amazing. He got probably a $60,000 raise from his old job as a mechanical engineer. And then I also got a huge raise from being a teacher. So the financial aspect is really nice. Like the economy is, not so great. The inflation definitely hurts. And so having these higher salaries, we don't have to struggle because before we probably would have really been struggling under the current, inflation and everything with that. And then also, I feel like my kids did know like that I was doing something. They don't really know all the details, but especially my son was kind of more aware of it. And now they see like that, we're a lot happier, less stressed. And I as they get older, I want to still tell them about this. And I want my daughter to feel like she can go after any job that she wants to. It does not matter, that you're a woman, you can do anything that you want to. And so it's just like, I feel like it'll help motivate them when they get older.
Oh, I already told you about the money, right? But yeah, it's important. It's good. I'm working remote, and so I get some time to myself to think and to reflect and to just feel like at peace. Honestly, to be real with you, in the military as a teacher, I didn't really fit. Like I never really felt like I was where I belong. I don't know if people really say it's a calling or whatever to both military and a teacher, but I just felt like unfulfilled, right? Like not motivated, even if, it is amazing work. But every day I'm excited to show up for work. Like I talk during stand-ups, I reach out, I love problems, I make things, break things a lot. And that's part of the deal, and it's so cool. Like I never saw in the Air Force, I was a computer admin and I did work with computers, but I just never thought I would do this for a living. Now I can't believe that I haven't been doing this for a living. Like this was everything I thought it would be. Like I hope that everybody gets what they want, because you're going through a program, it's going to take sacrifice, commitment, it's going to challenge you. You're going to have like that imposter monster or whatever. But at the light at the end of the tunnel, you will be happier. I don't want to guarantee it, I don't like a salesman, but you will be a different person, a different version of yourself, like an optimized version of yourself. And it's going to be so cool. Like it's amazing. I get to work with awesome people. I get to solve problems, and you will too. Like maybe you always wanted to work for X company or Y company, and you can. Like the door's not closed. It's just like motivation and your ambition is the only things that's limiting factors to you. So, besides the money, that comes with almost any engineering job. I'm happier with my family. I'm a different kind of dad, different kind of husband. And like, I love to be at work. So it's cool.
What a fantastic situation to be in, right? I think that's so great. And when people can find that and feel so good about it, like how joyous is the rest of your life, like you're able to have so much more positivity in the rest of your life when the place where you spend so much of your time is actually someplace you want to be. Like that's fantastic. I feel similarly working at Codesmith. I love it. It's my favorite job ever. I've had a lot of jobs, but this is my favorite job ever. So I'm super happy to be here. I fully agree with you, Eric. It just makes everything else better. My last question for the panelists before we open it up for Q&A is this. And Kristin, you spoke a little bit about this, but like, what do you all hope your kids and or your family will learn from your experience going through the immersive and becoming an engineer? So Kristin, if you don't mind, if there's anything else you want to add to that, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine.
Sure. just that they can do anything that they, set their mind to. And it doesn't matter if you started off in one job, you don't have like one career path, you majored in something, that doesn't mean that you have to do that for the rest of your life. We've lived this long life, and I would hate to feel like, oh, at 30 years old, I can't change up how, in my 30s, I can't change. Like I have to do this till I'm, 70 years old. That's a horrible feeling. So I just want them to know that like, if you pick a job and it's not your favorite thing, to go find something that you truly are passionate about, because you do deserve to be happy. Like, obviously it's still work. And so there's going to be things that you don't necessarily love about it, but I am so happy to come to work now. Like I don't dread it. There might be like a task here or there that I'm like, oh, this is a little more boring. But like overall, I'm so happy to show up to work and, be doing things that I'm passionate about. I used to literally cry driving when I was a teacher. Like I didn't want to go into the building, and it wasn't the kids, it was everything else. And now like I've never cried during this job. I'm so happy every single day. So I just think that I just want them to know that like you do deserve to be happy, within your life, and to find something that you're passionate about.
That's awesome. Thank you. Eugene, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So my kids are way too young to even understand job and career. But so what I really emphasize to them is that, they went to school and they saw that I went to school. And so I just try to really tell them that, like, look, learning is a lifetime. This is something you do your entire lifetime. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you're an adult, you always need to learn, and learning new things is always good. And so that's what I really try to emphasize to them, so that, that when they grow up, they don't hate school.
Yes. Excellent. Fabulous. And then Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to say on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be like a later lesson, like I think all of us have for the kids, because we have young children. But like, I think the experience that I learned the most is that, yeah, it's a learning process. You're in constant development. Like, you're not too old for this program. I don't really care what age you are. You can change, change careers. It's a mindset. You're not married to your current career. You don't belong to your boss, unless of course my boss is listening, then I love my job and everything's going well. It's going to be a crucible, and life is a crucible. Like, everything is tough and challenging. I don't want to tell them that it's easy. But if my daughter or son ever come up to me and say, I really don't like my job, I just say, okay, well then change. Like, how are you going to do that? What's your path? And I think I will be in a better position to tell them now. A couple of years ago, I just thought I would be a teacher or I'd be in the military forever. But now I know that, like, even if I'm not digging software engineering, there's product management, there's whatever, tech adjacent or not tech related, because I think the one takeaway you can get from this program at the very least is that you don't have to be the current version of yourself if you don't want to be. You can change.
Yes, that's a word. Thank you. Thank you for wrapping up the panel part with that. I appreciate it. So now we are open for Q&A, folks. And Caitlin, I think I'm right on time. So if you have a question, we will utilize the raise hand function in Zoom. If you don't know what that is, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there is a section that says reactions. Larissa's on it. She knows. And you can do the raise hand feature there. Okay. Excuse me. So Larissa, if you would please go first, unmute yourself, let us know who you are, where you're from, and then ask your question. Somehow you're muted still. You did unmute, but we can't hear you.
How about now?
Yep, better. We can hear you now. Great.
Okay, great. So yes, my name is Larissa. I'm in Orlando, Florida. I'm gonna do the full-time immersive. Well, that's what I want to do. I have my behavioral later this month. I've been doing the CSX and all of that. Yes, I'm so excited. I love everything Codesmith has taught me so far through the CSX, and that's free. So I'm like, I can't wait to see what's actually, what I'm paying for and how great is that going to be. So I guess for me, I don't have kids, but I wanted to join this because I wanted to know more about the full-time, like what is the schedule, so to speak, or the program, like what's day-to-day like? Sorry, that's my question. What's like a day-to-day in the full-time program? Like, what's the schedule like?
Yeah, so Eugene or Kristin, do you mind talking her through it?
Okay. Day usually starts, there's sort of like two major sections, like the junior portion and the senior portion. But just to give you a really quick rundown of the general day is you start at 9. and it goes to 12:30, depending if you're doing projects, or it could be projects, you're working on your project, or it could be lectures. After that, usually you have an hour or two lunch. I think it varies. Usually there's like 2 days a week. There's a 2-hour lunch. Depends on the schedule and holidays and all that. After that, you going from after lunch to about 5:30. 5:30 is when you take an hour for dinner. Once a week, there is family dinner where you sort of just join with everyone, just, shout out other people. And then usually 6:30 to 8. Afternoons depend, it could be more lecture, or it could be working on projects, or what would be like basically what you're working on, what you learned during the lectures. So generally it's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. with meal breaks.
And that's 5 days a week?
It's 5 days a week, and on Saturdays it's 9 to 5.
Okay.
Or 4, if I remember correctly.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Robert, you're next. Come back, Robert. Okay. Well, oh, there he is.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm usually on desktop, never really on mobile Zoom, but this is my. Okay, so first of all, thanks everybody for giving voice to so many of my issues and concerns, and in this like past like half hour to an hour, like I've learned so much, and so thank you for that. And my question is really about my intention to take the East Coast Remote Immersive. I don't even know how you would pronounce that in short.
It's a hard thing. It's like ECRE. We're still figuring it out.
Okay, cool. So I live in Los Angeles, and I found that between the hours of 5 to 8 o'clock are going to be my magic hours for spending time with my 2 kids. One is 9 months and one is going on 3. And those are my magic hours. So I chose the East Coast, for those reasons. And I'm just wondering if anyone can shed any light on if that would be a good decision based on this concern, or I guess just anything in general around this choice of going for the East Coast based on those hours that I want to spend time with my kids on.
I'm like literally trying to do the calculation right now. Okay, so if you're 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific is your magic hour, that's 8 to 11 Eastern. So if you, I don't know if that's the best option. Kristin, can you talk through it? Do you have any thoughts on it?
5 to 8 a.m. or p.m.?
Oh, 5 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
So I believe I would be starting at on Pacific time. I would be starting from 6 to 5.
Oh, yes. I see what you're saying. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. So I think that would be a really good choice for you then.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be tired because you'll be waking up pretty early. But you know, it's a short sacrifice in the time in the span of life. It's a short sacrifice. So that is something that like I had wished I had taken more into consideration, is the time zones and like giving myself more of like a chunk of time with my kids. So I think that's a really great choice.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I was also
question to the panelists. So you all talked about doing a little bit of extra work on top of it. If Robert has 3 hours that he's like really focusing for the kids, do you all feel like the teams will be able to manage that? Like, because he's gonna have to come back on, and it'll be really late for them, right? So
that was gonna be my next question. So
yeah, okay, sorry. Let me stop talking. Let me let you do your question.
No, you read my mind. That was exactly what I was thinking.
Outside the hours of the Codesmith. Well, you shouldn't need to be on during that time, right? I think the full-time immersive or the full-time, whatever course should have enough hours integrated, right, Eugene or Kristen? I mean,
So
you can elect to take extra hours, but wasn't Eugene's advice that maybe you shouldn't sometimes?
Fair.
yeah, I would say just just a quick note, in my cohort, we had people from California, we had people from Texas, we had someone from Australia, we had someone from Korea. So your hours, like people have done really weird hours in order for the program. I would say a good third of my cohort, once 8 o'clock rolled around, they were like, I'm off. And we're like, okay, cool. And zero pressure in order to stay past that. So, and even more so that like if you have kids, you'd be like, hey, I'm logging off because I have kids, as opposed to I'm logging off because I'm tired. Like both are extremely valid reasons. Most people, like I feel like most people, not most people, I feel like, yeah, I would say most people. I can't say everyone because there may be someone who may have issues, but most people will be perfectly fine. Be like, go spend time with your kids, or if your kids come down and show up on the Zoom, then that gives you a perfect segue to log off. You shouldn't have any problem with it.
You also, during the project phase, when you are with people, you should be having like daily stand-ups in the morning, talking about your progress. And you guys should have like some type of job board. And like, so there should be tasks that you could work on individually by yourself late at night if you wanted to. You don't have to. And Codesmith, does not say like you have to work outside of Codesmith hours. There's only one night that they do that, and I'm not going to give away what it is, but there's a hackathon that you do, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And you do have like that one night they kind of ask that you work a little bit different hours than you normally would and stay up late. But my the person I was paired up with, like we had a discussion with like what our goals were, and like I told him I still would like to get a good night's sleep. So we just made the commitment to each other that like at midnight we were going to just stop. And so like just being open with people with what you need really helps. And like he was really good with that too. Like he was happy to have that cutoff time, and we still had a really great product by the end of it. And like there were things I did on my own that when my team wasn't around. So you can do things without them too.
Good point. Thank you for that. All right. Thank you for your question, Robert. Anthony, please let us know what your question is.
Hey everybody. Yeah. So kind of like Robert, I just had my firstborn child 2 weeks ago. So dealing with a 2-week-old. And I'm in the East Coast right now, and I recently just found out about the Central Coast. So I wanted to know that if, for example, if I keep pursuing to try to get into the full-time immersive, because I'm planning on quitting my job, if for some odd reason I decide, okay, East Coast isn't working, but I've already been accepted into it, or maybe I've already started, would I be able to transfer to the Central Coast or whichever other time zone, I guess, like once you start the class, if you realize that the time really isn't working?
Panelists, do you have any thoughts on that? I'm happy to jump in if need be.
I think generally you can there is an admissions, you can talk to admissions before you start. I don't, so if you figure like, if you're accepted and be like, wait, I think maybe it's better if I do this time, you can do that before you start.
Okay.
After you start, I don't know the administrative part of it. I just feel like generally it would be not as good because you're sort of like trying to bond with the cohort. So usually try to make your decision before that, because you are like, this is a group of people that are going through it together. So I'm not saying it's not possible. I don't know that if it is possible. It's just probably just make a decision before that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, I'm dancing between it right now because I'm like trying to meet deadlines and also, trying to be dad and code, So yeah, okay. That helps.
Excellent. The other thing I would add is that these cohorts are filling up quicker and quicker. So if you are accepted into one, even if you do it before the program starts, you might have to go to a program that is starting, a cohort that's starting further or further out, because the cohorts fill up so quick. So I would keep that in mind too. So it is possible, especially like Eugene said, before the program begins, and after it begins, there's more administrative stuff, and you should talk to admissions about that. But if you do it before the program begins, just know that you might have to push into a future cohort that is a little bit further out than what you might want for your start date.
Okay, awesome. Thank y'all so much. Much appreciated.
Sarah, you're next.
Hi, so my husband actually did Codesmith, and at that time we had a 1-month-old and a 3-year-old, so it is possible. But at that time I was taking the kids, and that was my sole job. But I'm really not understanding how, Kristin, you did full-time with kids as a mom. Like, what was mom guilt like? Because I already feel it.
Yeah, I did definitely. I had mom guilt. Luckily, at the time when we lived in Texas, my mom lived nearby, so she helped us a lot. And then my husband like really stepped it up, and like he was doing laundry, he was cooking dinners, like he was always running around and trying to keep them entertained. But I definitely had mom guilt. Like the first few weeks, you're like so energized because this is like new and exciting, and then things start getting a little tough. And then, you are missing out on some of the fun things that they're going to go do. And so I definitely had guilt, but luckily I formed really good friendships in my cohort, kind of like Eric was talking about. And like, I would be like, can you just log on to Zoom with me and like, just listen to me for a couple minutes? Like, and I cried in front of people about like, and that's just how I let pressure out. And I'm like, I'm struggling with this right now. And then we would like talk about like what it was that like why I was doing this. And at the end of it, like I always felt good for being able to talk to some of my friends in the cohort. And like I knew I was doing this for a reason. And like now being out of it, like I'm so happy I did it. Like, yeah, it was 13 weeks of like missing out on some things, but I was really intentional with my time to like, some people did like code through dinner or code through lunch, but I didn't do that because I made sure to go spend time with them. Like, yeah, maybe I missed out on some opportunities of working with my cohort mates, but I got time with the kids. So it was like, I got to have both. So, I think that if you like write down those motivations, you have their pictures next to you, you'll get through it too.
So I think when Robert shared he's on the West Coast, so I live on the East Coast, there's no option to like start earlier. So, I mean, I guess like that's the only time zone that I can choose, right? Like Central or Pacific wouldn't make my day start earlier, correct?
Well, so I actually would have preferred if I could have started my day a little later. So I kind of wish that I could have done the West Coast. Now looking back, like I wish I would have done that because it would have started 2 hours later. So I would have started at 11 a.m. for you. You'd start at noon. Yeah, your day would go longer, but you would have like that morning time with them. And honestly, that's like when they're angels is in the morning, the afternoons when they're crazy, at least for my kids.
All right. Thank you for your question, Sarah. All right. I don't know if it's Clara or Clara, but you will be our last question for the session.
Hi there. Thank you so much. This was so helpful. This is something I just finished CS prep and I'm prepping for my technical interview. And so these are questions that I keep thinking about because my kid just turned 14 months. So she's, climbing things and running around. But I guess my question, just as I prep for the technical, is what did y'all do to prepare? Or is it like, I did CS prep. I felt good coming out of that. But the technical interview is a lot. So how did you prepare? What did you do?
So I attended JSB and then I went to CS Prep, and that was really helpful. And the other thing that I did was I formed really close friendships in my CS Prep group. JSB is a lot shorter, but CS Prep, you start to really feel like you get to know your cohort mates. And I made a group with quite a few of those people. And we had a study group that met every evening. We just kind of kept up the same hours and we helped each other. And we were extremely successful with getting in. And there are people on CSX that even if you didn't go to CS Prep, that you can reach out to people and say, hey, I'm available during these hours. And, maybe do like a Google Meet, or if someone has a Zoom account, meet up with people and go through different challenges together. The more you can work with other people to like have around you and motivate you, that's what helped me the most.
I might say something that's an unpopular opinion, but you can only prep so much, right? You can then take the technical interview and you could fail it. It's not going to be the end of the world. I think you get 3 attempts. So, like, keep in back of your mind what was difficult and then what you did right. Always tell yourself like some positive affirmations: what I did right, what was shaky, and then what went absolutely wrong, right? You're going to need that kind of resilience during the interview process after when you look for a job, because some of these jobs, they make you go through like 6 or 7 rounds, no joke, and sometimes all in one day. It's nerve-wracking, but you learn a little bit more incrementally. Some people are hot shots and go right out of it, and they can just nail it on the first time. But I wanted to make this point: just never compare yourself to others. Like, I would say study with others, but don't base your results based on their outcomes. Like your motivation and how you do is only reflective of how much effort you put in. And so finding people to work with and then just giving it a shot, the rule for applying for a job that I found, you look at a job application and like all their requirements, and most of it's posted by recruiters, so it's not necessarily everything you need. But if you have like 70%, even 60% of the requirements, give it a shot, right? Worst thing is that it doesn't go your way. The best outcome is that it works out. So don't sit on the fence for too long and worry about that technical. Just do your best and then learn from your experience.
Yeah. I'd say for your technical interview, the majority of people don't get in on the first one, but you are provided feedback as to what you did well and what you could improve on, and use that in order to see, like, okay, I was shaky on recursion, let me work on some recursion stuff. CSX, just run through them a few more, like after you finish it, go through it again, see if it still sticks. And if you go back and you realize, hey, I can go through a bunch of these without, after like a few weeks of not touching it, just go for it. Worst thing that can happen is, oh, you didn't do so well, but you got feedback. And, going off what Eric said, don't compare yourself to others you're studying with. Compare yourself to where you were a week ago or 2 weeks ago, because that's where you start. That's where a lot of positive reinforcements, at least for me, that it came from. There's always someone who's going to be better at coding than you. There's always someone who's better at coding than you. But when you look back, you're like, a week ago, I didn't know these concepts, but now we do. And then in a week from now, I learned these new things. That's where you see growth, and that's where you see, like the development of you as an engineer and you as a software engineer and you as a developer.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much to our panelists. I really appreciate that. I would clap louder, but it's going to be weird. We really just appreciate all of your time, your effort, your question, your answers, your thoughts. I really appreciate you taking the time out away from your kids to speak with us today, and have a great rest of your evening.